Barlow comes on, we can invite him to talk for his 5 minutes and then leave it at that. Okay, well, look, welcome, folk. Appreciate the extenuating circumstances, and just want to acknowledge, Sandra, that you and the council will have been through a fair bit since I last saw you on the, dare I say it, the 13th of this month with COVID, and I do hope all is well. Seems to be Thames is managing well, as in contrast to Auckland. So look, welcome also to everybody else to the meeting of the Audit and Risk Committee, and appreciate the work that's being put into it. And we do have some externals invited. Should be aware, not only have we got Mr. Barlow, we've got Carl here, and also we have got PwC later in the meeting, which is superb. So if I could get us underway. Do I have any apologies that people have been notified? I've been notified of none. Pardon? Oh, Robin. Thank you. Yes, Robin. Of course, Robin. Yes, got that. Thank you, Sandra. Are there any other apologies? Could I move from the chair, and I'll probably do most of the moving because it's easiest that way. Could I move from the chair that Robin's apology be sustained? Thank you, Sandra. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those against? It's carried. Thank you very much. I understand. Look, you can put there is the little facility to put the hand up on it. It may be for speed. If you just want to speak loudly at an appropriate time, we can get you involved in the conversation. We do have a public forum with Mr. Barlow. At the moment, we'll just wait. Well, we won't wait, but we'll move on until Donna can get Mr. Barlow on board. I don't have any notification of items that are late or need to be added to the agenda. Do any members have anything they want to raise in terms of the agenda? No. What about interests? Are there any interests over the matters that we've got coming up that you need to declare or discuss with us? There is none. That's fine. Let's move on to the minutes. We have the minutes of the last meeting, which was way back in May, believe it or not. They're there. I will put the motion that we accept them as a true and correct record. Do I have a seconder, please?
Seconder.
Thank you, Terry. Any comments? Are there matters of correction or accuracy that need to be resolved? As I want to say, it looks pretty much like the meeting I was at, so hopefully it was the one that you were at too. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those against? It's carried. Thank you very much. Right. Moving on, let's look quickly then at item 2.1, which is the interim letter on the current year. So we've got through the LTP since we last met, but obviously Donna H is into with her team the annual report, and Carl's done some of his work. So Donna, perhaps some short words from you. Carl, if you had some short words, that would be fine. Then I'll open it up for members for questioning. Donna? Have I lost Donna?
Oh, here I am. Good morning, everybody.
Oh.
Morning.
Good morning. So I'll take the report as read that this is the interim report, as Bruce has just said, for the audit for this year. There isn't a lot to report in it other than there is one issue around our sensitive expenditure policy. We have since had the feedback from audit as to what those recommendations for changes are, and I've been looking at them. There isn't anything significant in there. A lot of it is more around things like semantics, like words. Some of them don't actually apply to us because we don't have taxi charge cards, and we're just getting the team to go through it and just make sure that our policy does cover all these things off that are applicable to us at this stage.
Brilliant, thank you, Donna. Cal, invite from you. Can I just draw your attention, please, particularly to the key area of interest for us, which is section 5, which relates to audit timing. You're putting the dark cloud up over audit timing without giving me a sense of where it actually is going. If you could address that, please, I'd appreciate that.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, at the stage when we wrote the letter, the dark cloud was still there. So just to take everybody one step back, so it's not that a bit of water has gone under the bridge. The Auditor General went to Parliament, and Parliament approved an extension of the audit deadlines for not only this year but next year as well, due to the shortage of auditors in the country, and then us dealing with the backlog and the implications of COVID from the previous financial year. So just to explain that in layman's terms, so where the council's accounts would have to be signed off on 30 October in a normal year, the reporting deadlines has been moved to 30 December for this year. So for TCDC, and I apologize for the audit plan not coming out in time. We'll get that to management shortly. We've provided them with the plan date. So the plan date to start the audit this year is on the 11th of October. So it's highly likely that we'll work then from, sort of the second week in October right through, and then get the audit opinion, plan to issue the audit opinion here in mid-November. So that's sort of the timeline we're looking at. So it's a little bit out of sync with the normal normal schedule. So we can work around those last dates to schedule probably an out of sync audit committee, or we can push it out to the December one, depending on what TCDC feels will work better for them. The key thing I think that came out of the interim audit, other than my one finding and my very report that doesn't say too much, which is a very good thing for the council. We didn't find anything that was materially wrong in the period. Is that we implemented our audit dashboard tool to track the flow of information, and it worked really, really well for us, and I think for management. So we'll keep on using that in the final audit to make sure that we stay on top of things. So the key for us is we've got staff available for the audit, but it's important that council is also ready for this, for the audit, because we don't have staff after they're scheduled to come off. We won't have the capacity to return to TCDC and say worst case scenarios, you're not ready for us, then you'll fall into the back of the line, which hasn't been determined yet.
Thank you, Carl. Look, Donna and I were talking about this a couple of days ago as we're getting ready for the meeting. Donna, if I recall correctly, our discussion, your team is working hard to complete a draft in normal time, so there shouldn't be any problem with us meeting Carl's need for us to be timely.
That's correct, Bruce. We are still sticking to our same deadlines with the draft report, hopefully being available in the next couple of weeks. We will also be bringing that draft report to the next Audit and Risk Committee meeting as well. So at that stage, that will be unaudited. The audit, I think, will have only been happening for a couple of days when we have that meeting, but we will still have a full annual report draft for you to look at then.
Great. So that's the 13th of October. 2 days after Carl's team starts, but that would be a very appropriate time for us to be considering and recommending adoption of the draft report, because that's what Carl's going to put his numbers or his name to. So that's fine. Okay, any other questions on this largely information report that committee members would like to ask?
Looks like Tony's got a question.
Thank you.
My question's really to Carl. So page 14, item 3, sensitive expenditure. The staff report, I'm interested to know also, what is it that Audit New Zealand picked up that we don't seem to comply with the OAG?
Thanks for that. I can send the detail through, but I think it might be worth, after management has had a look and we agree that we can show the changes in where the policy has to be amended. Like Donna said, it's not material issues, it's just best practice things where additional guidance can be provided on to staff on sensitive expenditure. We did share the schedule with management. If need be, we can provide it to the committee.
Through the chair, my plan is that we will respond to every item that you've found, Carl, and also once we've got our responses in there, we'll send those responses to the audit committee to have a look at as well. So you'll see exactly what audit have raised and what management responses are to that.
Thank you for that, Tony. Thank you, Carl, for the response. I agree that's probably the simplest way. I think the critical thing, Tony, which I hope we've got a wee bit of assurance of today, there isn't any great hole or sensitive expenditure issue that we're running, which I think is most important. And if it's more a case of keeping it tidy rather than a fundamental change, that's good news. Any other questions for Carl or for Donna at this stage? There being none, I'll put the motion that we have, noting that update that we receive the report. I'll move that. Could I have a seconder, please? I saw Terry's hand up first. How's that? Sorry, Murray, you're a bit slow there. I'll put the motion, please. All those in favour, please say aye.
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 Thank you. Those against? It's carried. Okay, now I see Mr. Barlow. We have you on. Can you hear us, Mr. Barlow? You need to unmute yourself, please.
On that, yep. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now. You're unmuted. Mr. Barlow, my name's Bruce Robertson, Chair of the Audit and Risk Committee. And regrettably, we're not there in person, which in other circumstances mean I would have had a chance to have met you before the meeting. So welcome to our meeting. We are in the public session. We realised you had a wee bit of trouble getting on board. So we have obviously, as you realised, continued with our meeting. So at this point, members, I propose we move back to our unfinished item 1.3, which is public forum. And Mr. Barlow, you are invited to address the committee with your concerns. Mr. Barlow, I would ask you to keep to 5 minutes, and at the end of the 5 minutes, I'll ask you to stop if you are still talking. And after that, I'll open it up for members to ask questions of clarification. As you're aware, we have also a paper which will be dealt with in public excluded, dealing with your issues. So I look forward to hearing what you've got to say. And if I could ask you to keep to the timeline, that would be great too, please. The floor is yours, Mr. Barlow.
Okay, I was a little bit confused about whether it was being held in the public excluded or in the public side of the meeting. So can I talk to the issue now? Yes,
you are welcome to raise your issues with us. We're considering it later ourselves. Thank you.
My issue is simply around a water remission issue. Concerns a property I purchased at 1255 Chicky Road, Coromandel. I purchased the property in about December last year. The property was never occupied by me or any of my family. It was in a fully being restored mode. We received a water bill of $250, which we hadn't used any water other than minor bits and pieces during the renovation. We found a leak on the pipe that goes out to the stockyard in the rear of the property, which we fixed. We put an isolating valve on that, and we applied for remission, and we were declined on the basis that there had been 2 previous remissions by the previous owner. We had never, we'd only owned the property for 3 or 4 months when all this occurred. And we were told that the remissions, because there had been 2 previous, we were ineligible for a remission. My complaint is, or my concern is in grounds of equity and fairness. I don't believe that the policy applies to the previous, well, the policy applies to the ratepayer at the time, not me. I only own the property. I had no knowledge that there'd been previous remissions. I don't feel it's fair that I should be penalised because somebody else got remissions and I'm not allowed to get them, particularly when the house has never been occupied and we've never used any water. So it was clear that the water was from a leak that was unknown, wasn't declared to us when we bought the property. We intended to immediately fixed it, spent some money to repair it, and I just think it's jolly unfair that we're not allowed to get the $250 remission. And that's really all I have to say. It's unfairness. Unfairness, lack of equity. I think the policy is wrong. I've had my legal people speak to me and they've said no, it cannot be applied to me because I'm a new ratepayer. The policy applies to the existing previous ratepayer, not me. the clock should start again with me. And that's really all I have to say, and I ask the council to reconsider and repay the remission on a fairness and equity basis. And that's really all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barlow, for your brevity and your comments. That's appreciated. Members, are there questions that you would like to raise? Again, caution you, there are questions of fact or comments, sorry, questions rather than comments on Mr. Barlow's things. We will consider this later in our meeting. Any questions of Mr. Barlow? Can't see anybody or any hand up. Donna, I'm just checking with you. I'm not missing anybody. Mr. Barlow, thank you for that. Do appreciate.
No.
Oh, sorry. Do I have a question?
Sorry, I was just advised. No, I was just advising there was no one with hands up.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Barlow. Do appreciate your time for coming on board and for us for you to be able to personalise your message. And obviously, when we come to that matter in our public excluded, we'll consider it seriously as you're asking us to do. So I do appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Okay. Is that if the session ended for me now? I can close down.
Yes, that's if you wish to. You're most welcome to.
So with regard to the discussions that you have in the public excluded, will I be notified? When will I be notified of the decision?
Well, we will follow that through, and I will ask staff to let you know in the normal course of events to what our decision is. I don't see any reason why that would be necessarily delayed. Donna, is there any issue once we've made a decision in informing Mr. Barlow? I should be careful to make certain I do understand what the full basis of response back to applicants are. Donna, are you able to help me?
Sorry, it's always just confusion over which Donna you're referring
Sorry,
to.
Holland,
Bruce,
you're my.
That's fine. Yes, no, we will. Yeah, we can get in touch with Mr. Barlow straight away and let him know what the decision is. There's no problem with that.
Thank you. Appreciate that. So we'll let you know forthwith, Mr. Barlow. Thank you for that. Okay,
just one final question, if I may. If the decision goes against me, do I have a right of further appeal?
Look, I actually need to check. Donna, can you please just again, Donna H, give me the full order on that? I mean, I think this is the appeal with our recommendation to council, I'm afraid, Mr. Barlow.
Yes, you're correct, Bruce. This is the appeal. There is no further right of appeal after the Audit and Risk Committee decision.
Unless you go to the small claims tribunal.
No, okay, thank you. Well, thank you for that. I hear what you say. I've already advised in emails to Rob Williams if it goes against me, I will go to the Ombudsman. So thank you very much, gentlemen and ladies. Thank you.
Catch you later.
Thank you.
Right. So to get back onto my agenda, folk, if we could move to item 3.1, which is the risk report. Again, feels very familiar given Paku, you worked through with us generally our reporting the last meeting. So look forward to what you lead us through, please. Page 19 of our agendas.
Excuse me, Chair. We just need a seconder for the public forum.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
I don't think we moved that we would receive Mr. Barlow's advice, so I'll move that. Tony, it looks like your hand is up to second that we do. Could I please put the motion? All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against? It's carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, Donna B, for keeping me in good order there. So, Paku, I hope you're online. Have I got a PE somewhere? Must have. If you, oh, there we are, Paku. How are you? Even better, I can see your face. If you could lead us off, please, I'd appreciate that.
Okay, through the chair, I have I'm presenting today a deep dive risk assessment on climate change, and I'm presenting our 2-year risk plan, which provides you with all of the work we're going to be doing, work program in terms of improving what we do here in relation to risk management. So I'll take you straight to the strategic risks. The deep dive today is our third deep dive to do that we've undertaken, and that's sort of, if you have a look at the body under strategic risk, it's noted there. Of course, we've had in the meantime, our risk workshop. So this list is going to change. I need you to know that, and I'll update that for the next meeting. If I take you down to the climate change deep dive, of course, in interviewing our staff that are engaged in this work, there were 4 areas that came through clearly, and that was around the carbon footprint and our shoreline management, regulatory function, and future-proofing our assets. And what I've done is I've noted those down in the assessment, including the detail, what this means and what we're doing about it in each case. And then what I've done is we've risk assessed that against where we're at in the piece of work. It's fair to say in this case, we have, in relation to this, it's a work in progress on a lot of those fronts. There are specific actions that we are taking, and we're waiting on things like consultation and changes to take place, i.e. the RMA, etc. So that's the first part, and we can talk to that later. The second part is the risk improvement work program, and listen, we've already kicked that off. Obviously, we had our we're providing you with the deep dive risk assessments, which is part of this plan. Secondly, we've held our first risk workshop. Part of that was a bit of an educational, which is in this work program as well. And the next piece of work is, of course, providing you with a risk booklet that will support your risk management as a whole, and getting people to understand what risk management is and means. So really, that's all I have to say. I'm open to questions, Chair.
Thank you, Paku. That's really helpful. So it's again a very full report. If I could just perhaps lead us through it step by step without making too much of a meal of it. I obviously would like to have a chance to open discussion around the deep dive into climate change. Before that, can I just check firstly if we were to move members to page 21, which is the strategic risk summary, which, as Paku said, we have basically had a crack at in our workshop on the 12th, and that'll come back changed. Having said that, this is the current set until we change it. Is there any questions folk would like to raise there? Paku, I had one minor point to make, which is ultimately I'll be keen as we develop our reporting to actually try and understand the trend or the movement against each of these risks, rather than between the current and the targeted risk. It's obviously good to know if we are actually making traction, and that might be something to think about going forward. With attachment A, which is the risk improvement program, are there any questions people would like to raise over that? You're very silent this morning. I don't blame you. It's very hard. I'm not certain I can see every hand anyway. So, Paku, look, I have again want to be comfortable with actually what you're doing here. I am express my comfort. Can I just ask one question, Dan? It was actually on the second page of the plan, and well done for actually being prepared to be accountable for steps along the way, your milestones. Can you indicate to me when you will report to us on the achievement of those milestones?
Yes, sure. My idea is to report regularly through this forum, and I'll just give you an update. So, yep, I'll put that through as achieved or not.
Thanks, mate. All I'm doing is making it transparent that I'll be keen to see that you indicate to us that we are doing these things. One, doing is one thing, but two, I'd like to also get a sense that they are being effective, particularly as we develop that program through the organisation. That would be fine. Attachment B is the operational risks. So you've given us a small insight into really what management has got as their significant issues. Are there any comments that members of the committee would like to make at this stage, or any questions? Yes, thank you, Martin.
Yeah, so just looking at the operational risks, there doesn't appear to be anything on there around climate change. Did the operational risk basically just look at an individual piece of council operation and say whether climate change could potentially have an impact on that? How's that worked out?
Through the chair, the operational risks are being managed by the organisation, obviously. Climate change is actually one of the risks that we've identified as a strategic risk. And whilst we've got specific areas of council managing the operational parts of the climate change risk assessment, because it's actually been escalated as a strategic risk, it's kind of sits in that strategic area, Councillor. And that's really the only reason it's not in this operational risk register. Otherwise, often what happens is we get confused, and I'm trying to kind of filter out the operational risks separately from the strategic risks.
Mm.
Okay.
That's reasonably conventional, Martin, but I mean, what it does reflect is that Rob and the team are giving us an insight to essentially the day-to-day operational delivery risks they face. And we've also got our eye on those, as we say, strategic big risks, whatever we want to call them, how we want to categorise them as well, which does include climate change, as we're about to get to. So I think that we should be comforted that those matters are being covered. You've got a comment, Martin?
Yeah, so just sort of, I guess, a follow-up to that. So when council are assessing an application for someone to build a house or do a development, has what's changed in the last few years as far as what tools council, regulatory or planning people are using to assess whether those developments or that building work could proceed?
Somebody from the...
I realise it's quite a wide question.
It's Brian Taylor here, if you do want me to respond to that question.
Yeah, Brian, just a thumbnail sketch. We're partly crossing over into the actual deep dive, but look, for the sake of moving on, Brian, let's just hear your short answer, and then I think Sandra's got a comment she'd like to make.
No. Yeah.
Oh, no, you're okay, Sandra? Okay, sorry.
So the MFE guidance that came out in 2017 was one of those changes that helped us identify risk and the process to go through coastal inundation and flooding. And the WRC inundation tool would be a tool that we're typically using now a lot more often than we had in the past.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Brian. Terry, your hand is up.
It is, yes. Just really, I see the 3 highs in the drinking water area there on that page. Is that whether on the right page there?
Yes, that's where we are. Page 24, Terry.
Yeah. So that's is that compliance, or because we know the issues around telemetry reporting and all that? Is that the concern there? You've got a little bit of health and safety risks around events on council land.
Yes, that is reflective of the importance of the drinking water standard, and that we are working towards ensuring that we do have all of our sites across council are at that drinking water standard, or at a higher drinking water standard. That's not to say that they aren't, that all of that some of them aren't. But it's obviously I can't break them down into certain specific, plants, etc. But the whole idea is that it's about the significance of it.
I understand from Bruce that the water quality of the water is still within scope. It's just sometimes the reporting issues around it? Is this what we're still talking about? Nothing's moved in terms of that issue, really.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, basically, Terry, we still get low-level non-compliances from the regional council, not about the quality of the water, but other compliance issues that aren't as important, but they are rated as highly important from our perspective because it is still quite a perception risk, and people do grasp hold of those issues and make suggestions that the water quality isn't good. So it's basically getting that into the space where we know that all risks are managed as well as they possibly can be.
Thank you. And the other one just there, the health and safety risks at events on council land. I just quite clarify that, please.
Yeah, that's. Oh, Packer, you carry on.
Yes, that one there. We are doing a substantial work in this area, Terry, based on a significant incident that happened last year at Williamson Park. We're really taking it seriously. So we're unpicking our process in relation to improving how we accept applications and how we follow them through to the end in relation to our support to organisations and such, and assessing their events to ensure our public are safe.
Thank you. Thank you, Patrick.
And I can appreciate why you've got that rating there. And look, again, members, I just stress this is a very, and I do appreciate this, Rob, a very transparent look into the minds of Rob and the ELTs. So it gives you a sense. Rob, I just thought it might be Bruce, just had one question. There is obviously some delivery risks there over projects. Obviously, in the current context of COVID, how threatened are our delivery risks at this stage? Obviously level 4 at the moment. We might be hoping for level 3 to get construction going again on Monday. But any issues, any extension of time challenges at this, or is it too early to say at this stage?
I can comment there, Bruce. I mean, from my discussions with Bruce over the last week, we're okay. We're not panicking at the moment. If this drags on for another few weeks or more, then yes, obviously it is going to have an impact. So all I can say is at this point in time, we're not worried, but we will keep everybody informed as to how this situation drags on.
Yeah, no, appreciate that. Bruce, I saw you there. Would you add anything to that, or are you comfortable?
No, I think Rob's captured it well. At this stage, it's a bit of a watching brief. Every council obviously is in the same situation. Supply of materials is the critical issue if this drags on much longer. But basically, I've nothing else to add.
There's only sort of the odd roading work here and there where it's an issue of safety that we're allowed under emergency works to get in and do that anyway. But even north of Coromandel, we've made one site safe and pulled out. So, no major dramas, touch wood, at the moment. But if there are any life-threatening situations, we'll obviously just act anyway. So it's just a watch and brief.
Thank you very much. Martin?
Yeah, just sort of given the sort of recent news around projects nationwide that are being affected by cost overruns and increasing costs, have we had a chance to see how that might affect our projects for the next year? I realise it's a very simple question with possibly a highly complex series of answers, but it does sort of seem to me that if we are hoping to get at least 80 or whatever % of our projects done, it would be unwise for us to ignore the sort of current trends around prices going up. I'm thinking around price of steel, timber unavailability, not having asphalt made in the country anymore, COVID. I'll stop talking now.
There's definitely a lot of risks around that stuff, Martin. You're correct, and it's something that the project delivery team just manage operationally on a case-by-case basis for each project. But we haven't had too many kind of prices come back for a lot of our projects yet. But once the prices start coming back, that's when we'll get a better handle on things. The bigger issue from my perspective is the actual delays of supply of equipment. That's probably the bigger issue, which is going to push things out as opposed to the cost increases. The cost increases will have an impact, but but we're actually yet to know exactly how those might play out. So it's an ongoing issue for us that we have to manage.
Okay.
And it's cold comfort, Martin, but there you go, the rest of the sector as well. And it is a good question. It's one that Bruce knows we'll ask every risk committee meeting, because it is pointed out. I was at one where one of our stimulus funding projects has gone from $10 to $18 million, and that's a major pipe work. So it can be some eye-watering changes if they hit you. So it is serious. Okay, thank you for that. Pāku, I just wonder if we could move then to the climate change one. And again, I'd just like to perhaps remind members our aim here is to have a chance for a short discussion with Pāku if needed. Over this, we've already discussed earlier with Martin. This is a strategic risk. It's one which we currently see as high, with a view that for the actions we are currently taking and are proposed inside Pāku's deep dive, that we can reduce the nature of this risk. In other words, the proposition is that we shouldn't be prepared to accept it as high. So what I would be keen to do is, in opening up the floor, remind you that Pāku said there are 4 things. And on page 25, you can see that our own carbon footprint, shoreline management, the regulatory approach, and Brian's already spoken a wee bit about that this morning. Thank you, Brian. And also future-proofing what we do. Probably from the analysis that Pāku's done with management, obviously the key areas as we can see it at the moment. Of its nature, obviously, it's one that you'd always have a watch on because it's going to change, even if it's only because the RMA is going to change in the way that it's been heralded with a separate act even. So look, I want to open it up for members to raise questions with Pāku, state views. I'd be open to that now. Anybody who'd like to kick off? A resounding no.
Is it going to be me having to talk about it again?
Go for it, Martin. I knew you couldn't hold out for that long, so that's fine.
Yeah, I guess from my point of view, while I appreciate, and we discussed this in our strategic sustainability and resilience group, that there's a little bit of a lack of staff resource to be able to be starting to investigate these things, but I am concerned at the sort of the slowness of things, and I'm worried that we're considering that this is just a business as usual with climate change, and every indication is that we can't do business as usual in relation to this. I'm concerned that we're still waiting on reports back about what things were or weren't included in our carbon emission footprint, but that seems quite a minor thing compared to actually starting to do things. And I'd just like to see some almost like brainstorming type options to say, look, here's some things, whether we can get some other people to come in, because there'll be people willing to come in and do quotes and estimates and all sorts of things around what savings we can make. And yeah, I see this as a risk that we're seen to be not moving quickly enough. I appreciate the staff resource issues, but yeah, it doesn't look great if we're just holding staff resource issues up as a reason why we're not trying to be inventive and get some more stuff done.
Could I ask? Oh, yes, Sandra, go for it.
But Martin, if you've got anything that is workable, you're supposed to take it to your committee to be recommended to council.
I understand that, but I have been, I've been trying to raise issues, and yeah, I mean, it's probably just something I need to work through, but I just thought it was worth raising at this meeting, as a concern.
So could I just check, Martin, because I'm the outsider here. What is your group? I mean, I'm unless I have misread this, Parker, if it's formally part of council, I haven't heard of it before. And perhaps you just tell me very briefly how it fits in, because again, we're trying to identify what are the mitigations we're doing, and its potential from what Sandra is saying. Here goes an important mitigation, which is your group is, dare I say it, a watchdog, even a ginger group can bring recommendations to council. Is that what I've picked up correctly?
Pretty much. So would somebody like to, I've forgotten the name of the group because it changed. It's changed to, is it Risk and Resilience or?
Sustainability and Resilience Group. I think the acronym is SARG, as in short for Sergeant.
Sergeant at Arms, Call to Arms, yes, okay. Yeah, but that's a council grouping. I mean, it's a council created group, correct, Martin?
Yeah, it's a working group that can produce a report, or can produce, I think, proposals, reports, whatever, to then be considered at council.
Well, that's great. Actually, it's good. I mean, it's the first I've heard, and some of the councils doing that sort of thing as part of the process. Parker, I just wonder if looking at our deep dive here and the risk analysis, we've got, I don't know where that fits in. I'm partly thinking under the carbon footprint, but I think it's presumed the brief is broader than that. This seems to me to be an important part. I mean, what I am hearing is going back to original sort of expressed concern, Martin. Yes, councils do have a limited resource, but here goes a valve. Now, mentally, it's got how do we prioritise this in here? And you've got a question about prioritising. But actually, here's a way in which presumably smart thinking can be brought into the place, into the organisation, and potentially for action. Parker, I'd be keen to see that we capture that as part of our tools that we can use. Appreciate, Martin, you might report back whether you actually are using it, using it for any effect.
Through the chair, just so you know, and that it is around potentially it's around the carbon footprint, and we have the greenhouse gases reduction working group. So it's about making sure we connect those dots and ensure that stuff that is important to councillors is fed through.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that, Martin. Anything else from anybody? Okay, so let's see if we can we can wrap that up. This is useful. Can you just help me with one question here, please, Paku? So I don't, I would say looking at those risk ratings, there's nothing, this is what is, and it's probably fair that those ratings stand where they do. It does reflect actually there is a lot council can do. I guess the bottom line here is that we I don't think there's going to be any great sense that we change those at this stage. This now is going to form part of the regular reporting you'll bring to us quarterly, that actually essentially key mitigations are being carried out. Hello, Mr. Barlow, how are you? Still here? Anyway, Paku, in your hands.
Yes, through the chair, yes, absolutely. And obviously I'll report any change in that. Just wanted to point out that actually we've got a lot of work to do in each of those areas. So you're not going to get a great change immediately. It's going to take time. So just forewarning that it will stay at high until there's a lot of decisions to be made, around the RMA, etc., the shoreline management plans, etc. So the change is not going to happen quickly. But I will report this, as you say, through the through regular reporting, and any changes I'll report that as well. Yeah.
Thank you. So I've got hands up from Tony. I think I've seen first, then Terry. If I got the order wrong, apologies.
Mine is only a comment, and the points that Paku has raised in regard to major changes in government legislation and policy, being the RMA, Local Government Reform, Three Waters, and dare I say it, HPP behind the scene, which to me should be what we're talking about, not the rest of it. But as a country, we produce, it's like 0.01% of the issue, and we've got 70 local authorities. So when you say what they've got each, it's a small amount for each of those to put a lot of resource and money chasing their tails, when there'll be stuff come out of these other bits of work being done at a central level, and dare I say at a regional level eventually, that we will pick up on. I'm very mindful of wanting to make the changes, but for the time and the cost, which could all come to nothing, I'm just sceptical. So that's it from me about that.
Thanks, Tony. Kerry?
I actually didn't have my hand up, but I'm keen to look at the comprehensive report when we get to it, but yeah, happy to wait till that. No trouble.
Okay, thank you, Terry. Oh, I see what it is. Yes, Tony's hand came up, but it was in front of your face in terms of my screen. So sorry about that. Okay, so thank you, Paku. I think we will leave it at that. That we've gone through that. We've understood the action, the critical change, and in effect, if I can take it from your words, Sandra, Martin, your group's got a, it's not your problem, but your group has that avenue to get to come to council. So I'd like to see that integrated as part of the total picture. Could I please go to the resolution? So really, it's only one resolution, which is that we receive Paku's report. I think we could have the second one, which is note that we have provided feedback to Paku and staff. So I'll put that motion. Could I please have a seconder? Thank you, Tony. I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against? It's carried. Thank you very much. Paku, don't go away. 3.2, assurance report, please.
Yeah, sure. So the area that this one thing that we've done in the assurance space, and that is basically we've kicked off 3 more pieces of work around the RMA, finance key processes, and pool invoicing. These are 3 sort of significant processes that we're reviewing and assisting the organisation in terms of streamlining and in terms of any new finance systems that come on board to manage the processes, etc. So those are really the 3 areas that we've undertaken work in this assurance area. The other thing I just want to allude to is that off the back of our audit and risk workshop, we identified 3 areas that we will be reporting on through this assurance report, and that is the 3 audits that we've agreed that we will undertake, one of which was kind of alluded to earlier around sensitive expenditure. I think Councillor Fox discussed this. We will be doing an ethics audit, and this will cover off on sensitive expenditure, gifts, credit card use, conflicts of interest and gifts, people capability and privacy. So those will come through this assurance reporting at some point. I don't think there's anything else here that I would like to sort of highlight at all. In terms of our audits, we have had to extend the time frame and completion of some of the audit recommendations, but we're making progress on all accounts.
Thank you, Paku. So if we just, if I just put my slight lens over this, if I just point members to the background, we have 3 lines of defence. And this is really important because we can talk risks till the cows come home, but until we have some assurance that actually controls are in place, which is such a big part of Paku's work, along with other actions inside the organisation, it's difficult for us to as governors have the view that something's happening. So this report's really important to understand that we can get a level of comfort around appropriate management of the resources that we do have. And those lines of defence become really important, noting that Paku's work and his colleagues' work is the third line of defence. We should have good systems in place. They should be supported by the oversight functions of policies and procedures. And this is the third line of defence, where we actually dig in and dive into key areas to see where it goes. So a very useful report. I have some questions, but members, colleagues, do you have questions first? I think, Terry, you might have your hand up, please.
Yes, I have, yes. Thank you, Paku, for the report. I just want to raise this point around the capital project and monitoring control and the contract management and project systems, which you're looking for an extension of time. The only real reason in council that we have a lot of input into the capital works program, that's really what we're here for. The other stuff is all policy, procedure and process. So this really, in the years that I've been in council, is my big concern, is getting a capital project that's achievable, that is delivered on time and within budget. Now, this is a real concern, especially this year. We've got a big budget to try and achieve. So I see this as in a high area. What controls are you looking to put in place to make this drop out of high into manageable?
Through the chair, we have got a contract management tool that we've got in place that manages this, and this is the tool that I did a post-implementation review on. So from my perspective, we need to go back and test that that's being used as it was designed to be used again, and that's really it. I mean, I know that Bruce might have a view on this, but I think we've certainly, I think there's been some staff movements in this area. He might have a view in relation to delivery.
Yeah, thanks, Paku. Yeah, so it is a risk, Terry. You're correct that it is a big capital program, and we've talked several times about the size of this capital program that we're delivering this financial year. We do have the tool that Paku's mentioned. We've also made a number of changes in the project delivery team about how we monitor and manage and drive the achievement month by month of what we're delivering as a CapEx delivery team. We've also pulled an additional resource, so we do have some changes. We do have some staff moving on from that team, but Andrew and I have spent quite a bit of time, Andrew Bowden, this week and last week actually, putting together some contingency plans around that and pulling in additional resource. Andrew is interviewing at the moment for places in his team, permanent staffing, and yeah, we're hopeful that that's going pretty well, and we'll just keep moving forwards in that space really.
Can I just make a comment, Bruce?
Yes, please do. Rob.
I just want to remind everybody of where we've come from, because where we're at the moment is a way different place to where we used to be. So in the last 4 years or so, we've come from having no real control tools in place. We certainly didn't have Paku as a position in the organisation. So we've come from a place where we had a group of staff that weren't necessarily highly qualified in the space of project management. So the first avenue of implementation was to get staff that were qualified project managers. And Andrew Bowden was the first of those to really come in and grab the team, bring people together in a defined unit to focus on project management as an activity, as a profession. We then went through an implementation phase with Zycus and Project Online to actually put the physical tools in place to make sure that those project managers not only were doing their professional job in the way that they do it, but we could also record it and we could prove that the job was being done and that the monitoring was in place, which met the requirements of Audit New Zealand. And so therefore those items that we used to be very highly interested in when it came to annual report time, we've managed to have completed against those boxes, and Audit New Zealand is now just monitoring what we're doing in that space, and we're confident that we're doing a good job. We've improved in terms of having the tools and using the tools. And where Paku adds the real value now is we have an internal audit function that will make sure we continue to use those tools in the way that they're supposed to be used. So we've actually made a massive amount of progress in terms of getting this ship both on the water, steered in the right direction, and hopefully cruising to its destination with some sort of relevant assurance as each year goes by. Of course, you know, you can't make any plans for things like COVID. You just have to ride with the punches with that. So, you know, big capital programs, COVID thrown into the mix, massive cost escalations, they're all big risks. But at least we know we've got the right people, we've got the right tools, they know what they're doing, and we will do our level best as a collective group to get the best results that we possibly can.
And through the chair, the other thing that I have been doing with the project team is undertaking risk project risk assessments with the workshops, really, with the project team leaders, etc. And so we do that very early in the piece when a project is started. And that's really important in terms of delivering on time, delivering on quality, and delivering on budget. So we undertake that as part of the course.
I accept all that too, and thank you, Rob, for your explanation. I just would like to see a list of projects and timelines versus budget. I know that internally you may be doing it, but as externally, as councillors, it's really important that we see that these things are on a plan, on a piece of paper, and with some sort of timeline on them. And I know that they can move a little bit, but that's explanatory at the time. But having that ability to see this on paper, that we can see the work that's been planned, the timeline and the budget that's been thrown at, gives us some confidence where we're going forward. And that would be a great help to us in terms of understanding the issues going forward, but the professionalism that's supposed to be in place.
Yeah, through the chair, you may remember, Terry, that in chief executive reports, we usually put a top 10 projects type of list in there, the bigger projects that have those bigger risks that we usually try to report on. I'll just have to relook at more recent CE's reports to see if they've dropped off that list of things that we include, because I do know that we went to a more wordy sort of way of reporting the big projects like the Sugarloaf and the Copa Marine. But look, I'll see if we need to re-implement that sort of top 10 projects type of reassurance through my CE's report at council meetings, because that will probably be helpful for you.
Yep, that'll help. That's it.
Looks as though we may have lost our chair.
Okay, so if we've lost Bruce, Ariana, can you put up the agenda on the screen, please? Share the screen and let's move on, because I don't have the hard copy in front of me.
Paku's health and safety report is next, I think. Or we could alternatively go to a tea break, because we were due for one fairly soon, and hopefully get Bruce reconnected before we start again at 10:15 perhaps.
Yeah,
what a good. Is everybody agreeable to that course of action?
You probably had the most productive 5 minutes without me cheering. So,
actually, no, we were just about to take a tea break so that you could have a chance to come back.
Good, look, that's fine. Can I just say, when after the tea break, Sandra, I might just reduce my video. I live rurally. In fact, I'm on mobile. I can't even live on broadband. It reflects the depths of Western Southland. So could I will actually turn my video off and just be there by way of voice, if that's okay, from now on, because I think it might just make it more stable. But so look, we're going to break now. What time? 10:15. Is that when we get back? Reconvene?
Do you want to break, people, or do you want to carry on? So everybody wants a break, or do they want to carry on? Murray, do you want to break or carry on? Murray, mute, unmute.
mute. My scones will be with guava jelly be ready in a minute, so I'm happy to have a break.
Oh, what? I'm coming to your house. Oh, honestly, I tell you what, if anybody's in Whitianga and they need to go to higher ground, go to Murray's.
Just remember to get a scan to go to Murray's place, Sandra.
We're in level 4, Sandra.
10,
oh, yeah, that's right. No, I said if. So, rightio, 10 minutes, 10 past 10. We'll all be back here under the guidance of Bruce, who will be on video mute.
Thank you, Sandra. Appreciate that.